you enjoyed it out there. I want to say hello to my YouTube audience. We have a YouTube channel now, so you're going to be able to catch a podcast on my YouTube channel. I will share that with you via Facebook, Twitter, any platform that I can think of, Google or whatever. We're going to share it. We're going to share it in multiple platforms. So looking forward to that. Again, a busy program and a new era in terms of the podcast. As you all know, if you recognize, we have changed the name. I changed the name of the podcast. The changing of the name of the podcast is not anything negative. It's part of the evolution of this podcast. It's something that was organic, and it's something that, frankly, I had to give the credit, a lot of the credit, if not all of the credit, to one Arnold Manott, who said, "Look, dude, you got too many names, bro. Cyril William Gerald Quinn. That's a lot of names to remember. You gotta give the people, you gotta shorten it up a little bit." So, Real Deal Podcast. I think everybody can be able to handle that as far as shortening up it to the name. Plus, it was organic. It was the right time. I'm happy that you have real people in your life that will give you great advice and not be yes men, tell you everything is good. You need those type of people in your life. So shout out to him and his family. And I'm sure he's looking forward to some of the baseball talk that we have on this program and for later podcasts as well. But with all that said, we begin with the national championship, Villanova, Michigan. I don't know. Should Michigan show up? I mean, I'm wondering, they are the highest favorites of any team that has been since 2010, Duke against Butler, the Gordon Hayward team. I'm just wondering, should Michigan show up? I know they will show up, but should they show up? I mean, you have people just basically handing Villanova the trophy. And though Villanova deserves to be favored, their second championship appearance in 3 years, they, to me, regardless of what happens in this game, unless they just get outright embarrassed, I think they have the #1 program in all of college basketball right now. In my opinion, I think there's no question about it. Jay Wright's done a tremendous job building that program. And then, listen, Villanova does not get McDonald's All-Americans like year in and year out. They do not get the caliber of players that Duke, Kentucky, and even to a lesser extent, Kansas is getting, especially Duke and Kentucky. So the job Jay Wright has done in building that program, getting players to fit what they do, and that performance on Saturday night was one of the best semifinal performances that you will see. Pure domination. This is what we do. I love teams that stick to who they are, no matter what anybody says, no matter what. People talk about the three-point shot, live by a three, die by a three. Well, they say, okay, we'll take our chances. And Jay absolutely lit Kansas up. That game was over within the first 5 minutes, and they just cruised to victory in that second national semifinal. I'm telling you right now, college basketball needs a classic game tonight. You need a classic game. The semifinals, the Elite Eight, even the Sweet 16 have been bad for the most part. You had the Nevada-Loyola game, which was a classic, but the problem is Loyola Chicago against Nevada. But these other games, a lot of these games have been bad. You need in a worse game. Duke, Kansas was a classic. Was a very good game. I shouldn't say a classic, but it was a very good game, highly competitive, compelling game. Not a classic. Let me pull the brakes on that. But college basketball needs, in the worst way, for this to be a great game. And I think you have a chance, despite the fact that everybody's picking Villanova. I think you have an opportunity for this to be a great basketball game. I think Michigan matches up with Villanova. We're going to talk more about what Michigan has to do to win this game. I think I'll give you one thing off the bat. Look for field goal. Look for 3-point field goal attempts from Villanova. That, to me, is going to be the key stat. I would say 2 stats. 3-point field goal attempts for Villanova. 3-point field goal makes for Michigan. Michigan has to make their threes. They missed a ton of open threes against Loyola Chicago, shots that they cannot miss tonight. They have to say, I would say Michigan has to make at least 13 to 14 3-point shots to win this game. Not so much be competitive, but to win this game. And I think they have to hold Villanova under 30 attempts. Villanova's going to get off their 3-point shots. It's how many can you hold them can you hold them to a certain amount? They get into that 30, 35 range, forget about it. I mean, it's game over. That's how well they're shooting it right now. And right now, the way they're shooting it, again, we understand the 3-ball can go at any time. Anybody can have a bad shooting night. But I don't see Villanova having a 7 for 38 shooting night. I just don't. They can go, Villanova can still win this game and go like 13 for 35 or 14 for 40. Michigan has to chase Villanova off the 3-point line. That's the only way they win this game. It's the only way they win this game. Chasing Villanova off the 3-point line. Just getting started here on this latest edition, this first edition of the Real Deal Podcast. I'm your host, RIL Gerald Quinn. When we return, we will have tonight's headlines and much, much more on this latest edition of the Real Deal Podcast. We'll be right back. 347-215-6180. RIL Gerald Quinn on the Real Deal Podcast. Tonight's headlines. Women's National Championship last night. You had Notre Dame completing this a magical tournament with another game-winning shot. And please don't criticize me for for the pronouncement of this name by Ulagumbawable. I just destroyed that name. But she hits the game-winning shot for the second straight game, basically from the same spot. The only difference was this was a 3-point shot versus the 2-pointer that she hit in overtime. Both shots came in overtime. So Notre Dame completes the journey, completes the goal. And listen, when you beat Connecticut, you have to win a championship. You can't lose. You can't beat Connecticut and lose the national championship game. I know a lot of people were fearing that they would have a letdown, but give Notre Dame a lot of credit. They have a great coach. They have a tremendous program. And they win their second championship. It's the first since 2001. And again, it's always when Connecticut loses, college basketball wins. It's just that simple to me. So when Connecticut lost, I was the happiest man alive. I've had, and this is second straight. It's strange with Connecticut. I'm not gonna say that program is slipping, but I mean, you get to the Final Four undefeated and lose 2 straight years. That doesn't happen to Gino Auriemma very often. So, not going to go. Listen, they have, 10 championships. You can't criticize Connecticut. You'd be foolish to criticize Connecticut. But nice to see them take the L for the second straight year. LeBron James wants to corner the market on sports talk in the barbershop, apparently, as he and his team has concerns about copyright infringement in regards to Alabama and Nick Saban. Now, here's the thing. So, on LeBron's platform, Uninterrupted, they have a bunch of, they do a couple podcasts every couple of months. In a barbershop, sports talk, life, mostly sports talk. Alabama recently started their own podcast. Apparently, is going to have their own podcast in a barbershop. Again, I don't know if they're going to be talking basketball, but you figure they're going to be talking football, called Bama Cuts. So you have Bama Cuts versus The Shop. So, LeBron and company are concerned that, first, number one, an idea is being stolen, which would violate intellectual property rights, and 2, possible logo, image design laws are being broken in terms of the copyright infringement. Now, listen, I would love to hear from a lawyer about this. I've gotten fascinated by this over the last hour. I've been doing my own research in terms of what is copyright infringement exactly, intellectual properties. I'll give you the definition of intellectual property rights. The reasoning for intellectual property is to encourage innovation without the fear that a competitor will steal the idea or take credit for it. Now, again, I think the key to this whole situation is, first of all, if it's a logo situation or an image situation, if you're Alabama, you change the logo, you change the image. The name is not that shouldn't be a big deal. One is called Bama Cuts, the other is called The Shop. So I don't see how the name could be an issue for LeBron James and company. But I wonder, I'm reaching out to my lawyer friends out there, how hard it is to prove intellectual property rights violations. Like, how do you prove, how can you prove that an idea was stolen from you or was copied? How much of that idea has to be copied in order for a violation to occur? I'm curious about that. I don't know the answer. I'm not a lawyer. So I don't know the answer to that. So I'll be curious about that. Again, the one red flag I will say this about this whole situation is the fact that there was no immediate cease and desist letter from LeBron and company basically saying, listen, either don't shoot the podcast or we're gonna sue. So there was no, they want to talk about it. They want to have a conversation, discuss, learn more information about what Alabama is trying to do with the podcast and with the conversation. So that's a red flag right then and there. So I'll be curious to see how this thing turns out. Again, if you're LeBron James and playoffs are right around the corner, again, I know he has people dealing with this, but I posted a question: do you think LeBron James is petty for going after Alabama? We'll see how it turns out. Shouldn't take long for decisions. I don't see Alabama going crazy with this and going through a long, drawn-out court process. If I had to guess, my guess would be that this will be settled out of court as far as changes made to the not website, but changes made to the show, to Alabama's podcast. Again, if it's an image situation where a logo or image was copied, Alabama has to, that's a no-brainer. You change the image, you change the logo. But name, I don't see that being one of the violations. 347-215-6180. Again, I welcome any lawyer who has experience in terms of trademark and copyright, copyright things of that nature, copyright infringement. So any lawyer that has any experience in that, I will welcome a phone call, welcome a call at 347-215-6180. And I just want your thoughts, and definitely have a couple questions about trying to prove how hard it is to prove the intellectual property rights part of this situation. When we return, we will get into some baseball. Washington Nationals getting off to a hot start. So we'll talk about that and much, much more in this latest edition of the Cyril Gerald Quinn Sports Podcast. We'll be right back. I knew it. See, the over under was at least 3. That was number 1. The Real Deal Podcast. We'll be right back. Over under is 3, so I should be good for the rest of the show. 347-215-6180 is your call number on this latest edition of the Real Deal podcast. Again, I'll call myself almost was number 2 on the Real Deal podcast on this 2nd of April, 2018. 50 minutes after the 7 o'clock hour. Again, we are on. We're not on FB Live tonight. We are on my YouTube channel, recording this podcast on my YouTube channel. And as soon as this podcast is done streaming, it will be posted immediately on my YouTube channel, and I will share that with Facebook. I'll share it with Twitter. I'll share it with other social media platforms, as many as possible, to get this podcast out there. Looking forward to doing stuff working with YouTube and doing things with that. I'm a big fan of YouTube, and of course of YouTube and some of the content that goes on YouTube. And again, just the immediacy of instant content. I'm just blown away by that. Somebody says something, and 2 minutes later it's on YouTube. Now, sometimes there's some stuff that you might not want to see, but you have the ability to scroll down and basically choose what you take in as content on on music or any news, sports in general. So I'm excited to be working with YouTube. So week 1 of the baseball season basically is in the books. The first opening week. The Nationals, nothing like starting off the season in Cincinnati and get a nice clean sweep of the Cincinnati Reds. Nationals just knock around the Reds in that bandbox of a ballpark with just a bunch of home runs. They didn't the Nationals didn't other than Scherzer, who was his typical dominant self. Nationals didn't even have to pitch well. I mean, Strasburg was okay. Gio Gonzalez was decent, but Gio's Gio at times, not as many walks, but I don't even think the Nationals were dominant in terms of starting pitching. Bullpen gave up a couple runs, but again, against a team like Cincinnati, you have a lot of room for error. That team can score some runs, but they have awful pitching. They're going to be terrible again for probably the 6th straight year. I remember hearing the criticism when Dusty Baker was there. Oh, Dusty can't win the big one. All he did was get him to the playoffs this year. Now they are, a legit last place team in the NL Central Division. So the Nationals are going to, get off to a fast start right as we speak. I don't know what the score of the game is right now. I could check that out in terms of what the score they're playing Atlanta right now. I'll check that real quick. It's my Nats fans in DC in terms of what the score is. 2-0 Nationals off to a quick start. Top of the first as they jump on an Atlanta team that isn't expected to do much this year. It's interesting with the Nationals. They're the place where, as a franchise, as any sports franchise, you want to be. And that's amongst the favorites to go to and even possibly win a World Series. Now, it's a gift and a curse because on one hand, you have a talented team, good farm system, you're a well-run organization. You have one of the biggest stars in baseball in Bryce Harper, great pitching staff. You have a lot going for you. But everything you do is based on your success is contingent on what happens in the postseason. That's where the Nationals are at right now. No one cares about Max Scherzer winning any more Cy Young awards. No one cares if Strasburg strikes out 300 people. No one cares if Bryce Harper, in terms of fans or media members, I'm sure the players want to rack up on their awards for monetary bonuses and things of that nature. But in terms of the fans and media, no one cares if Bryce Harper wins another MVP. It's all about the Nationals getting to the World Series. And I think the Nationals, it's World Series or bust. And I'm not saying they have to win the World Series. They have to get to the World Series to me to have a successful season. Again, they are amongst the teams that are favored to go all the way. I've seen publications that have picked the Nationals to win a World Series. And again, if the Nationals win a World Championship, I won't be the least bit surprised. Despite past postseason failures, I think eventually, if you're consistent and you keep knocking at the door, that eventually you're going to kick the damn door down. But again, no one cares about the awards, Gold Gloves, the team accolades within the regular season. They're expected to win that division. They should win that division. It's a bad division. I listen. The team that has the most, the team that can challenge them the most is the Mets. Does anybody have faith in that pitching staff to stay healthy? Because I don't. I don't. Even Cespedes goes out there and hits 40 home runs, and I think he's capable of having a big year. We know he can carry a team, but that pitching staff, I have to see that pitching staff stay healthy for the duration of the season, and I just don't believe they are going to. I can see. Listen, I think the Mets are either going to be a 70-win team or like an 86, 87-win team. So I think there won't be too much in between with the Mets. Other than that, the division's awful. The division's awful. So again, if you're the Nationals, it's go to the World Series, it's pennant or bust as far as I'm concerned. They'll get off again. They have 3 in Atlanta. They have their home season kick. They have a 10-game homestand that starts with hosting New York later on this week. So they can get off to a quick start if they get 5-1, 6-0. Nothing wrong with getting off to a quick start in the beginning of the baseball season. It gives you a little leeway for some pitfalls that in a 162 game season is going to happen. That is going to happen. So we'll see what happens with that. I have 4 teams that I think can win the whole thing. I think the Yankees, Cleveland, Houston, and the Dodgers. Those are my 4 teams that can win the entire thing. I was on San Francisco Giants for a bounce back, but the Bumgarner injury kind of like scared me off in terms of them having a bounce back season, not to win a championship, but to possibly make the postseason. I think the Yankees, despite now, I know the Yankees have some injuries to their not bullpen, but to their outfield, Hicks and with Aaron Hicks and a couple other guys, but keep this in mind. And of course, Greg Bird as well. Hicks and Bird being banged up. But again, the Yankees are loaded. The Yankees can go out there and get any starting pitcher they want to, anybody they need to fill a void during the trade deadline. They have the assets, they have the money. They can go out there and they will go out there to get them. They're trying to win a championship this year. There's no two ways about it. Their farm system is loaded. And I mean loaded. And I think I really believe, and I hope I jinx the hell out of them. I really believe that the Yankees are going to be in the World Series this year. And again, the competition's tough. Cleveland's loaded. Houston's great. Boston will be right there in that division. Boston will be there in the wild card. I think the Yankees are going to run away with that division myself. But you have a loaded American League with Cleveland and Houston. But I think the Yankees are the best team. I think the Yankees are the best. I think the Yankees are probably the best team in baseball, to be honest with you. So I can see the Yankees in the American League. National League, I don't trust the Cubs. I either say Dodgers or Nationals in the National League. When we return, we'll get into the national championship game. I will tell you who should not have made the NBA, the Basketball Hall of Fame. We'll talk about that and much, much more on this premiere of the Real Deal podcast. We'll be right back. I'm going to save some of the boxing stuff. I wanted to talk boxing with the Anthony Joshua and Joseph Parker fight. I'm going to save that for the next podcast because I have just a few thoughts about not only that particular fight, but the overall state of the heavyweight division. So I'm going to save that for the next podcast. Again, Masters later on this week, Thursday. It's probably the most anticipated Masters in over a decade. A lot of people coming at Tiger. You have some golfers, have some people coming, I'm sure anonymous golfers. I haven't seen anybody put their name on this statement that they can't believe that Tiger is favored to win it, to win the Masters. So it's gonna be a very interesting dynamic with this new generation that did not see Tiger dominate the sport while they were playing. Now maybe they grew up watching them when they were like 10 or teenagers or in college, but were not on tour. What, like, like a Ernie Els, like a Phil Mickelson, the non-contemporaries of Tiger Woods. Man, remember, those guys had no fear of Tiger Woods. You know, unless you're Phil Mickelson, Vijay Singh, who's not on the regular tour anymore, on the senior tour. But unless you're like a guy, Sergio Garcia, unless you're guys like that, you have no idea. This new generation, whether it's Spieth, Dustin Johnson, guys like that, Justin Thomas, most of these guys have no idea how dominant, have not had to face the wrath of Tiger Woods when Tiger Woods was dominating the sport. So there's not a fear factor from that standpoint. Okay? So you're going to get some slick comments made anonymously. Like nobody, like Tiger's, that's the one thing that's changed about Tiger. He is well liked on tour. And it's funny how when you are not as dominant, how all of a sudden you become well liked. Everybody likes you now. Like in Kobe Bryant's last 2 years when he was injured and couldn't move, that's what's happened with Tiger Woods. As Tiger Woods over the course of the last couple of years, especially with the injuries, and especially now, we have not seen, these younger players have not seen the dominant Tiger Woods. So now, yeah, of course you're gonna get along with him. And of course, he's likable and things of that nature. Well, if he runs off a couple majors, we'll see. I want to see how long that likability lasts from these current players. 347-215-6180 is your call number on this latest edition of the Real Deal podcast. National championship tonight, Villanova, Michigan. It was Michigan's first appearance since 2013. Villanova, of course, won a championship 2 years ago. You're gonna see a lot. This game is gonna be dominated by guards. It's gonna be a guard-dominated game. Again, Michigan has to chase Villanova off the three-point line. They have to chase them off that three-point line. If Villanova shoots 30. Now again, Villanova has won games where teams have held them under 30 three-point attempts. Not in terms of makes, but attempts. Texas Tech, and who they play in the Sweet 16? West Virginia. All right, because it seems like it was years ago, a couple weeks ago. So West Virginia and Texas Tech, defensively, I thought held Villanova, did a good job of chasing Villanova off the three-point line, but it didn't matter. Listen, there could be a situation where I didn't see where Villanova snuck up on us and became a dominant team. They've won all their games by double digits. They've cruised. Like their closest game has been 12 points. No team has been this dominant going into a championship game. And again, the 2000s, I know 2016 North Carolina won all their games by double digits, but we know that team. And I'm a North Carolina fan. We knew that. We know. Anybody that watched that North Carolina team know that wasn't a vintage, classic North Carolina team. The last dominant college basketball team that ran through the NCAA tournament. I know Kentucky. Kentucky was dominant that Anthony Davis, Kid Gilchrist year in 2012. But the last true dominant college basketball team was the 2009 North Carolina Tar Heels. That team was a dominant basketball team from the start of the season to the end of the tournament. No one came within 12 points of them in the tournament. I mean, again, there's some ridiculous numbers in terms of they led by double digits, like 180 out, 240 minutes. Just some insane numbers of how dominant they were. Cruised in the Final Four. So Villanova right now playing on extremely a high level. They're well coached. They're experienced. I like Jalen Brunson. Reminds me of kind of has some Mark Jackson in him. Plays under control, can post you up, crafty. And they have so many guys that can score the basketball. So many guys that can shoot the basketball. So many guys that can good passers. They just do the fundamentals. They do all the little things easily. And again, if you're Michigan, the good thing for Michigan And the great news for Michigan is that you have a top coach. You have a coach that on a short turnaround can come up with a game plan and a defense that maybe can throw off Villanova a little bit. Beeline is one of probably 4 or 5 coaches that I would trust in this spot going up against a big-time Villanova team that's rolling right now. So that's the thing Michigan has going for them. They also have a guy in Wagner who was tremendous in that national semifinal against Loyola Chicago. He needs to have a game similar to that. Wagner needs 20 to 25 points. He needs to destroy Villanova on the boards. They are susceptible on the boards when they go to the when they go to the 3 or 4 guard lineup. You can crash the boards and get some offensive rebounds on them. Wagner needs to be dominant in this game for Michigan to win. He can't sit, and we've seen him shaky in this tournament. He's had some bad games in this tournament. He was great on Saturday night, but he needs to repeat that type level of performance for Villanova. Again, I think Michigan has a better than puncher's chance to win this game. I'm not going to disrespect. Beeline's too great of a coach. They have some guys that can score the basketball. They have a couple guys that are due for big games. And I'm telling you, one guy who I'll keep my eye on in this game is Jordan Poole. That guy has a lot. He's gonna be a pro player one of these days. In the future, he has a lot of talent. A guy that can that can get to the rim. We know that he can make open threes. He's one of these unsung heroes that can come out here and score 20 and 25 points. So if he had a big second half against Loyola Chicago. So they need him. They need Wagner to be big time. They need Matthews and Poole and those guys to make shots. Duncan Robinson. Michigan has to make 3-point shots in order to win this game. They are not going to win this game shooting, 7 of 25 or 8 for 30. 8 for 29. They have to make their threes, and they have to limit the amount of 3-point field goal attempts from Villanova. 347-215-6180 is your call number. When we return, we will get into the Basketball Hall of Fame that's coming up, along with Rillo's rant on this latest edition of the Real Deal Podcast. We'll be right back. 347-215-6180 on this premiere of the Real Deal Podcast. Still 2-0 Washington, top of the second against Atlanta as the Nationals try to get off to a 4-0 start here. To their season, to their 2018 season. You have Villanova, Michigan coming up in about a little over an hour. Busy day, a busy weekend in terms of the NBA. A lot of games on yesterday. I hadn't seen this in a long time. NBA TV basically had a triple header. Western Conference is like there's a playoff game every night in the Western Conference as far as these teams trying to cement their status, especially if teams from that 4 through 10 spots in the West. San Antonio, nice win over Houston, and Oklahoma City had an excellent road win over New Orleans. I still don't understand how you cannot get Anthony Davis to basketball in key moments, especially in the fourth quarter. I don't get it. A guy with his skill set. A guy who can put the ball on the floor. Like Anthony Davis is not just a classic post player that you need to pass on the ball. You just like he can dribble the basketball. He can put the ball on the floor. So again, I don't understand how Alvin Gentry. Again, listen, they played well. They played well. It's hard for me to destroy Alvin Gentry this year, considering that they lost Cousins. Considering that I thought coming into the season the roster wasn't that good to begin with, but guys have played over their head. Drew Holiday's been great. The Mirotić trade has helped tremendously, and they are right now. But they find themselves right now half game behind Minnesota for the 7th spot and only a game up on the Denver Nuggets, who pulled a rabbit out of their hat, and has some, got some help from Giannis, who has to do a better job at keeping his composure. You can't get kicked out of that game. So that was a bad job by him. As soon as he got kicked out, the game turned immediately. Jokic from Denver. Now, I think he should make third team All NBA. That guy is basically 18, 10, and 6 every single night. And some of his recent play, I would love to be curious in terms of what he's doing in March. He has been playing at I don't want to go crazy saying at MVP caliber level. He's been playing like an all-star. And this guy may be one of the most underrated players in the league. I know that's cliche to toss around, but he's been playing. He's been great. I'm gonna look up his numbers for the month of March, because he has been just Nikola Jokic. He has been off the charts good. I mean, let me see, last 10 games. His last. All right, here's the last 10 games. His last 10 games, he is 26, 23, 6, basically 24 points, 5 assists, 11 rebounds, shooting 51% from the field and 51% from the field. I mean, he's been just off. He's been great. He's literally played like one of the best players in the league over the course of the last over the course of the last 5 to 10 games. March, again, April, I know it's a short body of work. March, he was 20. Month of March, he was 20, 10 and a half, and 6. Shot, 52% from the field and 45% from the three-point line. So this guy, again, I think he deserves to be, again, he's only 23 years old. That's a scary thing. I didn't realize that. This guy is only 23 years old. So Denver had, again, a season-saving victory for Denver against Oklahoma City, against the Milwaukee Bucks. As far as the Basketball Hall of Fame, some of the names are obvious. Jason Kidd, Steve Nash, Ray Allen. Now, keep in mind about Grant Hill. Now, a lot of you are going to say, well, Grant Hill, what did he do the last 10 to 12 years of his career? He was hurt. He played for a long time. Check his numbers his first 6 years of his career. He was putting up, like, LeBron-type numbers his first 5-6 years. Like, he had a couple of years where they were not all around, but he had a couple of years where, 1 year he had like a 25, 9, and 7 year. And the guy was one of the top 5 players in the league for his first, I would say, 5 years of his career. Now, the thing that pushes him over the top as far as making the Hall of Fame is what he did in college. Went to 3 Final Fours, won 2 national championships. And I'm telling you right now, Duke won those 2 national championships. Duke winning those 2 national championships and Grant Hill arriving was not a coincidence. If you remember, okay, everybody tells this Christian Laettner, one of the all-time great college players, and he was. He went to 4 Final Fours, had some big-time games in the NCAA tournament. We know what he did against Kentucky in 92. We know what he did against UNLV in 91. But Duke was embarrassed in 89 against Seton Hall and the 30-point loss against Vegas in 90. Okay? Christian Laettner was on the team. Bobby Hurley was on the team. Grant Hill, Thomas Hill Brian Davis is already there. Grant Hill, Thomas Hill, and Antonio Lang came in 91. in 1990, in the 90-91 season, championship, back-to-back championships. It's not a coincidence. And Grant Hill led that class. Antonio Lang was a very good player, nice role player. Thomas Hill was a nice role player as well. But it was not even Thomas Hill. You had Grant Hill and Antonio Lang. Those are the two. Those are the two freshmen. And Thomas Hill. They came in together. Brian Davis was the older player. But Grant Hill and Antonio Lang, Grant Hill was the difference in those two championship victories, in those two championship years. And what he did in college, again, Defensive Player of the Year, all-time great at Duke, 3 Final Fours. You combine that with his first 6 years of his NBA career, then he's a basketball Hall of Famer. Now, one guy that should have been in, one guy that should not have been in, Chris Webber should be in the Hall of Fame. I don't understand how Chris Webber is not in the Hall of Fame right now. It is a disgrace. I don't care about him calling timeout. I don't care about the stuff that went on at Michigan. Okay, I honestly don't. In regards to what his on-the-court performance in the NBA, Chris Webber was a guy that was a perennial all-star in a loaded conference, playing against Dirk Nowitzki, Tim Duncan, Kevin Garnett, night in, and Rasheed Wallace, Antonio McDyess when he was healthy. I mean, the golden age of power forwards was during the time that Chris Webber played. Chris Webber played in those late 90s, early 2000s. And he more than held his own with those guys. Now, again, not as good as Duncan, not as good as Garnett, not as good as Nowitzki. But even if you're a notch below those guys, who are arguably probably 3 of the top, say, 20 or 25 players of all time, you're still a Hall of Famer. Maurice Cheeks should not be in the Hall of Fame, period. Maurice Cheeks was a great defensive player. I know 4-time All-Star. Nobody ever mistaked Maurice Cheeks to be one of the top point guards in the league. He was never on that level. He never made an All-NBA team. Okay? All defensive team, not an All-NBA team. He was never a top point guard. I grew up outside the Philadelphia area watching Maurice Cheeks play. Maurice Cheeks is not a Hall of Famer, period. So, it's interesting. Again, popularity sometimes ranks merit, and Chris Webber, without question, is getting the shorter end of the stick. He absolutely should be in the Hall of Fame. We're gonna wrap this up with Rillo's. Rant, and I'll just say this: Kevin Durant should be the best player in the world right now. And the difference between LeBron and Durant is mental. It's mental. Kevin Durant, from a skill set standpoint, from an on-the-court defensive standpoint, I can argue I'll say Durant's better, to be honest with you, in terms of playing both sides of the floor, especially defensively at this point in their career. The reason why Durant is not is because
60 seconds.
The reason what separates those two is mental. At this stage in LeBron's career versus this stage in Kevin Durant's career, Durant, can throw up 26, 5, and 7 and 4 in his sleep. He can throw up numbers in his sleep. And I know the shooting percentages, and I know what he's about in terms of that. But he has had an opportunity to take Golden State and take the regular season by the throat with no Steph Curry, with Klay Thompson being injured, and he hasn't done that. He hasn't. And again, he should, without question, be the best player in the world. It shouldn't be a discussion, especially at this stage in Kevin Durant and LeBron James' career.
10 seconds.
At least until Giannis takes it, because Giannis, the Greek Freak, is going to be the best player in the world in I would say about 2 years. Give him about 2 years. Now again, Durant can go out there in the postseason and dominate. They can win a championship, and I'll have to eat a lot of crow come June. But let me see him go out there and do it. So far, without Curry, when guys have been hurt, when things have gone awry with Golden State, Kevin Durant has not taken that team from a leadership standpoint and led them. From a leadership standpoint, and that leadership is mental. It's not about skill, not about because I know some of you Durant disciples are gonna throw numbers at me. I'm not worried. I don't care about his numbers. I care about how how you are carrying a team that's had a multitude of injuries, including their most important player in Steph Curry being out. I care about that. That's going to wrap it up for the Real Deal podcast. I will take Villanova 79-75. I think it'll be a close game. Michigan will not make enough threes, and Jay Wright gets championship number 2 and championship number 3 for the Philadelphia area in 2 years. So Philadelphia is winning right now without question. Enjoy the game. I will see you next time. So long.